My name is Amelia Payton. For many years, I was the shadow behind a gang of young people who should never have followed me. They called me a leader, a strategic mind, someone capable of blazing trails where no one dared to tread. I accepted these titles as if they were medals, as if my power defined me. But if someone had torn down the facade I wore with such pride, they would have found only a lost, fractured woman, trying to survive in a world I myself helped to poison. I used these boys as a shield, as currency, as an extension of my own rebellion. Each of them believed I was protecting them, giving them direction, offering them security. But the truth was different. I was only diverting their lives to the same dark pit where I already lived, without knowing or wanting to admit that I was creating victims of a cycle that I myself could not break. The responsibility I carried on my shoulders was too heavy, but I transformed it into power, into control, into pride. The truth is, I wasn't strong. I wasn't invincible. I wasn't admirable. Inside, I was afraid of everything. Afraid of poverty, afraid of loneliness, afraid of abandonment, and above all, afraid of facing who I had become. So I chose to harden myself. I put on armor that separated me from pain, but also separated me from any real chance of redemption. I kept telling myself that the world was too cruel, that everyone was playing the same game I was playing, that I couldn't allow myself to falter. It was easier to believe that than to face the truth. I was destroying lives to sustain my own broken pride. Living like that, I convinced myself I was untouchable. I laughed at danger, mocked the consequences, and pretended nothing could reach me. The feeling of invincibility kept me deluded, while inside, every lie, every act of manipulation, every wrong decision corroded my soul. I believed I could escape everything. The law, my enemies, even God. I truly believed it. Until the day everything changed brutally and definitively. Because my story didn't begin to unravel when I lost control. It began to crumble the instant I died. And it was at that moment, facing a reality I could never have imagined, that I saw everything I had denied for years surround me all at once. The faces of the people I manipulated, the paths I ruined, every lie, every omission, every selfish choice that made me believe I was strong. In that instant, there were no masks, no pride, no shields, only absolute truth piercing me, AI. Light so intense it illuminated every dark corner of my soul. And what I saw changed everything. The pain, the guilt, the regret, and above all, the understanding that no shadow I had built could escape the light of God. What you will discover next is the truth that no one wants to face about themselves, about the choices they make, and about what truly exists after their last breath. If you stay with me, you will understand not only what happens when life ends, but also how every decision we ignore today can shape our eternal destiny. The story I'm about to reveal may touch you more deeply than you imagine. And perhaps it is exactly the message your soul needs to hear before it's too late. I know this story has already touched something deep within you. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Stay with me to discover what happened next. Revelations that could transform your life and awaken your soul before it's too late. After my name gained traction on the streets, I started to believe I was truly in charge of something. The routine was always the same. Waking up before sunrise, reviewing routes, assigning tasks, controlling territories, managing conflicts, all as if I were some kind of makeshift general. But deep down, I was just feeding a system that was devouring me from the inside. I walked with what they called authority, but the truth is that every step I took was guided by fear, accumulated anger, and a thirst for importance that nothing, absolutely nothing, could quench. The boys who followed me were treated like soldiers, but they were just teenagers trying to survive in the same cruel world that once crushed me. I gave orders firmly, conveyed confidence, promised protection, but inside I knew I was only using each of them to support my own downfall. I said I was helping, but I was only helping myself, as if each life there existed to fill my lack of purpose. The easy money, the respectful glances, the feeling of invincibility, all of this created a kind of dangerous intoxication that made my heart beat faster, as if I were truly alive. But there was a catch. The more power I gained, the less peace I gained. I slept little. ate without savoring the food, spoke without believing my words, lived without realizing that each day I was drifting further from the person I could have been. My world was noisy, chaotic, intense, full of voices, engines, footsteps, threats, and empty promises. And yet, at the bottom of all that noise, there was a persistent silence. A silence I avoided facing because I knew that if I listened, I would have to admit the truth. And that silence began to transform into a sensory presence that I couldn't explain. A presence that seemed to announce what I wasn't yet ready to see. That silence that haunted me, hidden amidst the hustle and bustle and chaos of the streets, finally found a way to corner me on the day I made the decision that opened the first door to the darkness within me. It was when I placed, in the hands of a boy of only 13, the responsibility for something that I myself didn't have the maturity to carry. He was there, trembling, holding what I had placed in the palm of his hand, trying to appear strong, trying to prove that he deserved to be part of my little empire. And while he tried to convince himself, I also tried to convince myself that it was necessary. My conscience spoke to me in that instant. It wasn't an audible voice, but it was a feeling as clear as a cold touch, running down my spine. A kind of warning that said, if you do this, nothing will ever be the same again. I felt it. I really felt it. But instead of backing down, I did the exact opposite. I adjusted the boy's hood, gave quick instructions, hid my own guilt behind a hard look, and told him to go. That seemingly small step became my breaking point. After he ran off down the alley, silence followed me like a tall, heavy shadow, staying behind me, breathing with me. I knew I had crossed a line. That shouldn't have been crossed, but I stifled any feelings. I tried to convince myself it was just another job, just another advance into the territory, just another strategic move. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of a spiritual space opening up within me, a space where the light could no longer enter with the same force. And it was in that space, in that newly created void, that something began to move. Something I couldn't see, but which would soon begin to reveal itself in a frighteningly real way. After that day, something inside me began to harden in a way I didn't immediately realize. It was as if a thin, almost invisible layer of coldness covered my chest, and each wrong choice added another layer, until I felt almost nothing. At first, this seemed like an advantage. I told myself I was getting stronger, more resilient, more prepared for the cruel world I lived in. But in reality, I was becoming less human. The situations that might have shaken me before began to pass before my eyes as if they were part of a silent film, without impact, without emotion. I saw mothers crying for their sons who got involved with my gang, and I simply looked away, as if their pain had no weight whatsoever. I saw boys getting lost, getting hurt, turning away from the life they could have had, and all I did was say that that's just how it is, as if it were normal. It was as if my heart had forgotten how to beat with compassion. I justified everything with a twisted logic. If I don't do it, someone else will. This phrase became a mantra I repeated to shield myself from guilt, until the guilt actually stopped knocking at the door. And when guilt no longer appears, it's a sign that something much deeper has already taken its place. I slept without remorse, woke up without reflection, lived as if nothing demanded any kind of emotional responsibility from me. But indifference doesn't leave an empty space. It creates an inner echo. And that echo began to grow, vibrating within me like a deep, heavy, almost physical sound. A sound that seemed to call me to a dark place I didn't yet understand, but which would soon reveal itself before me with brutal clarity. That indifference growing inside me seemed to make me immune to everything, and perhaps that's exactly why I didn't notice the signs. Signs that something was stirring around me, as if destiny itself was waiting for the exact moment to confront me. That night, I had gone after one of the boys who was trying to distance himself from the gang. He had been restless for weeks, talking about change, about leaving the streets, about starting over far from all that. I, trapped by my pride, saw that as both a threat and a weakness. I decided to call him for a serious talk. We met in an abandoned lot we used as a hideout. The sky was heavy, moonless, as if something were pressing down on the air around us. He was trembling, but not from fear. There was something different in his gaze, as if he were finally seeing who I really was. I walked towards him with my usual rigid posture, ready to impose my version of the truth. But before I could say a word, he raised his hand. And in that hand, there was something I never imagined he would have the courage to point out to me. I heard the sharp click before I even understood what was happening. It was so fast that my body didn't have time to react. The sound of the gunshot seemed to pierce not only my flesh, but also everything I thought I controlled. I felt the impact like a hot, sharp blow, and then came absolute silence. A silence so profound it seemed to swallow everything else. My body fell backward, but my consciousness remained suspended, trapped between the ground and a strange void. It was in that instant that something began to separate, as if an invisible boundary were being torn apart right before me. The instant my body touched the ground, I felt as if the very air had been ripped from within me. There was no prolonged pain, no struggle for life, just a sudden suspension, as if someone had pressed an invisible button and switched off everything that kept me bound to the physical world. I heard a distant echo, as if my ears were submerged underwater, and then I realized something that didn't make sense. I was still conscious. I was still there, just in a completely different way. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw wasn't the dark sky above me, but my own body stretched out on the ground. The scene seemed distorted, as if I were looking through thick glass, and yet every detail was too sharp. I saw blood spreading across the dry earth. I saw the boy who threw me standing there, motionless, his eyes wide as if he had just woken from a nightmare. I saw my still chest, my mouth slightly open, and I felt a strange separation, not of pain, but of identity. I looked at my hands and realized they were no longer solid. They were outlines of light, fragile and floating, as if my body had been transformed into something I couldn't understand. Gravity seemed not to reach me. My feet didn't touch the ground. It was like being trapped between two worlds, breathing air that didn't exist and hearing sounds that came from nowhere. That's when I felt a force pulling me upward. It wasn't abrupt or violent. It was firm, inescapable, as if someone had placed their hand on the center of my chest and was lifting me effortlessly. And as I rose, something began to form in the distant light, something I didn't recognize, but which carried a spiritual weight impossible to ignore. As that force pulled me upward, the light around me began to shift. It wasn't the ordinary light of the world. It was something alive, conscious, as if it had a will of its own. I couldn't define whether it was warm or cold, but I felt it penetrating parts of me that I had always tried to hide. As I ascended, the sound around me ceased to be a distant echo and transformed into a silence so profound it felt weighty. It was a silence that didn't just surround me, it investigated me. It read me. That's when my movement stopped. I was suspended in the air, without ground, without direction, and before me that light began to take shape, as if it were taking form. First it was an outline, then a presence. And only then did I realize what was happening. I wasn't facing a vision, nor just any energy. I was facing someone. He didn't need to introduce himself. The mere proximity tore down all my defenses. It was as if my soul, not my eyes, had recognized who was there. Jesus. Not the Jesus I saw in pictures, but the living, real, absolute Jesus. The one who transcends any lie anyone tries to create about themselves. When he looked at me, I felt everything I had done weigh upon me like a wave that hit me completely. There was no accusation, no word of condemnation. His gaze was enough. In it, I saw all the lives I had broken. I saw every lie I had told myself. I saw my naked soul without excuses and without masks. I wanted to look away, but there was nowhere to run. And it was then, in that instant when I could no longer escape the truth, that the light behind him began to open, revealing something I never imagined I would see. When the light behind him began to unfold, I felt as if I were being pushed into a memory that wasn't mine, but which carried the weight of the consequences I myself had brought about. The space expanded as if the very air were tearing apart, revealing a scene that seemed to exist between the spiritual and the emotional, between what is seen and what is felt. The brightness dissolved and gave way to a kind of living, pulsating twilight that seemed to whisper names I recognized. That's when I saw the faces. Faces of boys who, at some point, trusted me. Each one appeared before me not as ghosts, but as interrupted destinies. I saw them small, still full of dreams, before I placed upon them a burden they were never meant to bear. I saw one of them, holding a notebook in childhood, saying he wanted to be a cartoonist. I saw another running down the street in his school uniform, trying to escape the reality that surrounded him. I saw each one in their stolen innocence, and I knew that part of that theft bore my fingerprints. As I watched, these scenes began to shatter like glass struck by stone. The images dissolved and transformed into a dark, dense place where those dreams never came to be. It was a void where everything seemed suspended in time, as if it were a space reserved for lives that lost their way before they even began. I felt the weight of it upon me, not as punishment, but as truth. It was then that Jesus, without moving his lips, made me understand something that pierced my soul. You didn't just take away choices, you took away futures. And before I could even breathe in the face of that revelation, a new vision began to form. An even deeper vision, one that pointed directly at me. After that revelation, I felt as if my soul had been broken, and, at the same time, opened for the first time. It wasn't the common guilt we feel after a mistake. It was a profound, almost physical awareness of the real weight of what I had built with my choices. Each memory seemed to take on a life of its own, and the darkness around me seemed to breathe, reacting to what I was inside. For a moment, I was certain that this would be the end, that this place, made of inevitable returns and inescapable truths, would be where I would remain, reaping everything I had sown with my own hands. But then something changed. The light emanating from Jesus intensified in a way I cannot describe with human words. It was not condemnation, not contempt, not coldness. It was a silent yet irresistible invitation. His presence drew near, not to erase what I had seen, but to show me that the revelation of truth was not the end of the road. It was the beginning of a path I could never have imagined. I felt a gentle yet firm force envelop my being. It was as if invisible hands were holding me before I fell completely into the abyss of my consequences. That presence not only touched my soul, it pierced hidden layers, reaching places I didn't even know existed within me, as if he were gathering pieces that I myself had destroyed over the years. I didn't beg for life. There was no room for pride in the face of the magnitude of what I had witnessed. But I cried out. I cried out not to leave those boys trapped in the destiny I helped to build. I cried out for reparation, even knowing that some wounds would remain. I cried out above all to never again be who I was. And it was in that silent clamor that I felt everything around me begin to change. The darkness began to dissipate like smoke in the wind. The light grew, and my body, still motionless on the floor that night, began to call my consciousness back like a magnet. The last thing I saw before returning was Jesus' gaze saying, without uttering a single word, that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same. When I finally opened my eyes in the hospital, I felt the weight of the oxygen entering my lungs as if I were breathing for the first time. Each breath hurt and, at the same time, felt like a miracle. The white ceiling seemed brighter than any ceiling I had ever seen before, and for a few seconds I was lost in doubt. Was I really back to life or still trapped in some space between worlds, on that threshold between what is earthly and what is eternal? But then I heard voices, footsteps, the constant sound of doctors moving with haste and precision, and in that instant I knew life had been given back to me. Not as a prize, not as a reward for merit or belated regrets, but as a responsibility. I didn't return healed. I returned conscious, and that consciousness changed everything. In the days that followed, while my body recovered, my spirit was restless. I understood that the second chance God had granted me was not merely to rebuild my own story or alleviate my guilt. It was to use my experience, my mistakes, my suffering, and the revelation of what I had seen beyond life to warn and protect others who walked the same paths of darkness I had trod. I sought out some of the boys who were still alive, those who had blindly followed my instructions, and tried to reach them with words they may never have heard before, words of truth, of warning, of hope. I spoke with families I had once hurt, looked into the eyes of those who had felt the pain of my choices, and saw there a mixture of hurt and hope, fear and forgiveness. I did not try to erase the past, because no one can erase what has already happened, but I showed that even the hardest of hearts can be broken and transformed by the hands of God when He decides it is time to open their eyes to reality. Throughout this process, I realized something crucial. There are people living today exactly as I lived before I died. People who deceive, who run away, who justify their mistakes with old wounds, and who believe they will never have to answer for their actions. But we all do. Sooner or later, each of us encounters the absolute truth, an encounter without masks, without excuses, without artifice. At that moment, the life you built with deceit and manipulation has no cover. The evil you do doesn't disappear. It returns like a shadow, haunting every step. And the good you ignore, the good you fail to do out of convenience, selfishness, or fear, exacts an even higher price, because every opportunity to make a difference is unique and once lost, does not return. This awareness taught me that there is no time to ignore the warnings that God places before us. There is no too late for transformation, because life doesn't wait for us. Don't wait to lose everything. Don't wait to see loved ones destroyed. Don't wait to suffer to finally understand the true value of life. Don't wait to die to discover where you're going, to understand what really matters, to confront the consequences of your choices. Every day is a chance, every moment an opportunity to decide whether you want to walk in the light or continue feeding the shadow within yourself. Therefore, if you are listening to this testimony now, I ask that you do not ignore the call. Listen carefully, reflect sincerely, examine your heart, your decisions, and your omissions. Ask yourself, what am I nurturing in my life that distances me from what is right? What masks am I wearing to justify actions that I know are not right? What people or situations are being harmed by my silent choices? Because the truth is inescapable. God sees every act, every thought, and every intention. And He gives chances while there is time to change, to repair, to reconcile, and to transform. And if this testimony touched your soul, if it awakened something within you, don't let it pass you by. Subscribe to the channel and follow each story, each account, each experience. Here, each video is not just a narrative. It's a call, a warning, an opportunity to reflect and act before it's too late. Each story exists to awaken, confront, and above all, transform. Continuing to watch can be the difference between continuing down the path of shadow or allowing the light to illuminate your heart. Because life is short, time waits for no one, and eternity is certain. What you do today will determine what you find after your last breath. Choose to listen, choose to change, and allow these words to touch your life. Subscribe, like, and stay with us. Each new video may be exactly the message your soul needed to hear.